This story kicks off at Albert Lincoln High School, where Andrew Norris arrives for his first day as a music teacher. In the teacher's lounge, he meets Terry Corrigan, the biology teacher, and is surprised to see a gun in Terry's briefcase. When Norris questions it, Terry simply tells him he'll find out soon enough and offers to show him around. It turns out Norris has been hired to replace another teacher named Goldstein. At the entrance, Norris finds it strange that the students are being thoroughly searched before being allowed in. What's even more surprising is that, despite the searches, some still manage to sneak in, carrying all sorts of harmful things. Norris notices a few students slipping in with a blade and immediately calls Terry's attention to it.
Hey, guard, that kid in the brown shirt has a straight wrist.
It's too late now.
But Terry advises him that, to survive in this school, he has to look the other way, because everyone carries. Norris meets the school principal, Mr. Morgenthau, who explains just how dangerous the students can be, listing all sorts of vices they're involved in. Before assigning Norris to his class, Morgenthau shows him some students smoking marijuana on school grounds via CCTV. He also tells Norris that, in addition to teaching, he'll be assigned to corridor and washroom patrol within a few hours. This doesn't feel like part of Norris's job description as a music teacher, but he starts to realize that surviving at this school will take a lot more than just teaching music. When Norris gets to his assigned classroom, he finds it in complete chaos, disorganized and filled with a mix of diligent students and outright psychopaths. He's horrified that these are the students he'll be teaching. Before he can say much, Deneen Bowden, one of the few good students, approaches him and warns him about the gang members, saying they don't belong in the class. Norris tries to call the attendants and instructs the students to answer when their names are called, but Peter Stegman, the leader of the gang, steps up and covers for the rest of the troublemakers. Stegman is actually the only one among them who belongs in the class, but the arrogant, spoiled brat storms out with his gang anyway. This gives Norris a chance to finally connect with the few students who genuinely want to learn music. He encourages them to pick up their instruments and play. Later, Stegman questions his gang about why they haven't been making as much money as they used to in their drug-selling business. It turns out a guy named Juju has a cellar inside the school too, and it's been cutting into their profits. It doesn't take long before they spot one of Juju's dealers, Leroy, pushing the same kind of drugs. As soon as Leroy sees them, he tries to run for his life, but they chase him down and beat him up in the washroom. After kicking his ass, they tell him to pass a message to his boss that if Juju wants to play, he needs to show up like a big dog. Back in class, Norris asks Terry what happened to the teacher he replaced, Goldstein. Terry says that, according to Morgenthau, Goldstein had an accident and will be back later. But from experience, Terry adds, no one ever really comes back. On his way home, Norris finds graffiti on his car that reads, "Sucker Teacher," a message from the bad boys in his class, but he ignores it and drives home to his wife, who asks how his first day went. Norris tells her how bad it was, but she tries to reassure him, saying he'll get used to it. Meanwhile, Stegman and his boys manage to find Norris's address and drive over to his house in Stegman's car. Just as Norris and his wife are about to go inside, the boys pull up in front of the house. Norris, wondering who the hell they are, approaches the car, only for the boys to splash what looks like blood on his face before speeding off, laughing.
Andy!
Later that night, Stegman and his gang go out to party. After partying hard, they prepare to recruit some new members. 2 new faces show up, Vinny, a 14-year-old kid, and Sella, a coke whore. Vinny seems too young for their crew, but they decide to keep him in mind. Sella, on the other hand, has to pass a coke test, and her kitty cat is handed over for Fallon to sample. The next day at school, Arthur and Jimmy raise the country's flag, while Norris addresses the rest of the class. He tells his students that he wants to put together a junior symphony made up of students from 2 senior classes. He asks for volunteers, but no one is interested until they realize there's a cash prize involved. As soon as Stegman hears about the money, He struts into the classroom to show off his piano skills, hoping to impress Norris and charm his way in. Norris seems impressed by his talent, but tells him he'll have to earn a spot by actually showing up to class and doing the work. Later, Norris meets up with Terry, who's drinking and caressing his lab rats, which he calls his lower animals. Terry hands one of the rats to Norris, joking that he should get a hug from a lower animal, because at least they don't kill each other without a reason. He puts the rats back in their cage, takes another drink, and raises a toast to the lower animals. Norris doesn't stay long before making his exit. Out in the school corridor, it's chaos, as students are everywhere. Norris spots one of Stegman's gang members standing at the washroom door, blocking anyone from going in. Sensing that something shady is going on, Norris rushes over. Inside, Stegman and his boys are trying to sell drugs to Jimmy. Arthur tries to talk Jimmy out of it, but Jimmy has already made up his mind. He hands over $30 for a bag and sniffs that shit right there. When the gang member at the door sees Norris approaching, she quickly signals the others, and they all scramble to act like they're just using the bathroom. Norris pushes his way in, suspicious, and looks around. When he spots the drug bag, Arthur denies knowing anything about it and covers for Jimmy. Norris tells Arthur and Jimmy to leave the washroom, then decides to report Stegman and his gang to the principal. Stegman tries to threaten him, claiming he runs the school, but his threats couldn't scare a goldfish. At the principal's office, Norris reports to Mr. Morgenthau that the kids have been dealing drugs, but of course, they all deny it. For something as serious as this, Mr. Morgenthau says they need solid proof before they can take action. Norris tries to convince him of what these students are capable of, but still, no valid evidence, no consequences. To sabotage the whole thing, Stegman tells Mr. Morgenthau that Norris has been harassing them since he arrived at the school. He even claims he's the best pianist in the school, but that Norris is unfairly denying him a spot in the orchestra. The situation gets heated, but Mr. Morgenthau shuts it down by dismissing the boys, with the condition that they're not allowed to use the washroom at the same time anymore. Norris is stunned that the kids are getting off scot-free, but that's just how it goes.
All I want to do is play in the orchestra, and he won't let me. That's not true.
Not long after, Jimmy is spotted at the top of the flagpole, and apparently, he's hallucinating from the drugs he bought from Stegman and his crew. They try to get him down, but before they can do anything, Jimmy falls and bites the dust at the spot. Norris approaches Arthur and tries to get him to name the dealer, but Arthur refuses to say anything and walks off, while Deneen quickly follows after him. Meanwhile, Stegman and his gang start worrying about what Arthur might have told Norris, so they decide to follow Arthur and Deneen. As Jimmy's body is carried away, Terry suggests to Norris that they go get a drink. Something Norris agrees sounds like a good idea. On the way home, Stegman and his boys pull up alongside Arthur and Deneen. Arthur tries to reassure Stegman that he didn't mention any names, but Stegman, being his usual obnoxious self, insists they get in the car. The kids know this won't end well, so they try to run. Unfortunately, they're chased down to a dead end and are about to get attacked. By sheer luck, Norris and Terry, on their way to grab that drink, happen to drive by and spot Stegman's car. Norris suggests they stop and see what the kids are up to this time. Terry thinks it's a bad idea since they're off school grounds, but Norris insists. Thankfully, they arrive just in time to stop things from turning bloody for Arthur and Deneen. Stegman taunts Norris, saying he can whoop his ass now that they're off school grounds, but instead of backing down, Norris confidently tells him to go ahead and try. It doesn't take long before Stegman and his boys attack Norris and Terry. In the chaos, Deneen and Arthur manage to escape. As for Norris and Terry, they take some hits and get roughed up, but eventually fight their way out of the mess. When Norris gets home, his pregnant wife, Diane, asks what happened, and Norris just says he got into a fight with some punks. Concerned, Diane presses him about what's really going on at his job, and with a heavy heart, Norris explains that a kid died at school. He tries to blame himself for Jimmy's death, but deep down, he knows it wasn't his fault. Later that night, while Norris and Diane are talking, they hear a loud bang. Norris looks out the window and sees that Stegman and his gang have set his car on fire. The next day, fearing for Diane's safety, Norris suggests she go stay with her mother, but Diane refuses, insisting they leave together, or else she's not going anywhere. Meanwhile, Norris decides it's time to report everything to the cops. He meets with Officer Stewiski, but Stewiski says the kids can't be charged because they're under 18. He explains that these kids can easily drum up alibis from dozens of other students, making it nearly impossible to pin anything on them. Stewiski admits they know all about the gang's crimes and already have a file on them, but for now, all they can do is watch. The next day at school, Mr. Morgenthau calls Terry into his lab, only for Terry to discover that it's been completely trashed. Heartbroken, Terry walks out without saying a word, leaving everyone to wonder what he'll do next. Norris, already certain of who's behind it, grows a pair of balls and heads straight to the washroom and threatens Stegman, warning him that next time he crosses him, he'll kill him. Just when it seems like things can't get any worse, Stegman pulls a twisted move. He bashes his own head against the wall and frames Norris, making it look like Norris assaulted him.
He tried to kill me! Calm down. He's crazy, man!
Norris tries to explain what really happened to Mr. Morgenthau, but it's a tough sell, especially with blood on his hands. Norris insists that Stegman should be suspended, but Mr. Morgenthau warns that if anyone's getting suspended, it'll be Norris. But that would jeopardize the school's academic standing, leaving 5 grades without a music teacher. Determined to take action, Norris goes to Stegman's house to have a word with his mother. But, as expected, she refuses to hear him out. All of Norris's efforts to reason with her are useless. Not one to leave quietly, Norris smashes up Stegman's car before walking away. The next day, Stegman storms up to Norris, ready to fight over his wrecked car, but before things can escalate, a security officer steps in to break it up. Stegman has no choice but to back off or risk being charged with assault. Later, Stegman spots Norris and Arthur talking to Officer Stewiski and immediately assumes Arthur is a rat. Furious, he decides that Arthur has to go. Stegman and his gang, along with little Vinny, plot to kill Arthur. They stage a fight in the cafeteria as a distraction, and Vinny is handed a blade to do the job. Arthur survives the attack, but ends up with a ruptured kidney and needs urgent medical care. Meanwhile, while Norris is rehearsing with his students for the upcoming symphony competition, he's called away by the security officer. Norris follows him, only to find that Terry has completely gone nuts. Inside his classroom, Terry is holding his students at gunpoint, demanding answers to his questions. His plan is either to scare them straight or force them to focus, maybe both. Norris offers to step in and calm Terry down, but Terry warns him not to interfere. Shockingly, the students who never paid attention before start answering all his questions.
To fail this class. Now what is the answer?
And maybe Terry's insane method is working, until he gets to Stegman. Stegman hesitates, struggling to respond. This sets Terry off, and he nearly pulls the trigger. Thankfully, Norris rushes in just in time and deflects the shot. Terry's breakdown is fueled by what Stegman and his gang did to his lab and his animals. When Norris tries to convince him to go home, Terry refuses, saying he's fine, and walks off into the chaos. Later that night, Terry tracks down Stegman and his gang at their usual hangout. The moment he spots Stegman, he floors the gas pedal and chases after him with his car. But in his rage, Terry loses control, his car flips over, crashes, and bursts into flames, and that's it for him. After what happened to Terry, Diane becomes terrified for her safety, so the hoe finally decides it's best to go stay with her mother, but she's worried about Norris. She urges him to leave the school before he ends up like Terry, but Norris refuses. He promises he'll stay safe and visit her on the weekends. Meanwhile, still lying in his hospital bed and receiving intensive care, Arthur refuses to tell Officer Stewiski, who stabbed him. He's afraid Stegman's gang will come after him the moment he's discharged. But eventually, Arthur opens up to Norris and confesses that it was Vinny who stabbed him. Norris, furious, rushes to find Officer Stewiski, On his way, he crosses paths with Stegman and his gang, who are just getting back from the station. His anger boils over as he demands to know why they've been released.
What the hell are you doing? Why did you let them go?
Norris believes they set Vinny up to take the fall, and that the whole gang is behind it, but Stwisky explains that the law prevents them from holding minors beyond 24 hours without formal charges, so they had no choice but to let them go. This only fuels Norris's frustration, but Stwisky warns him that if he wants to stay alive, he'd better be a good boy and mind his own business. It's finally the day of the orchestra, set for 8 p.m. The audience has been invited, and Diane plans to attend too. Norris urges his wife to get there early and heads off to prepare. On his way, he crosses paths with Stegman and his gang yet again, and he almost shits his pants as they threaten to ruin him. As Diane gets ready for the event, Stegman and his gang break into her home through a window and brutally gang rape her. During the attack, they take a photo, later using it to blackmail Norris. While waiting for Diane at the orchestra, Norris receives the horrifying picture. He chases after the girl who delivers it, but it's a setup as he runs right into Stegman and his crew and gets jumped. After a brutal game of cat and mouse, Norris finally fights back. One by one, he takes down the gang members, and it all comes down to Stegman. After trading blows, Stegman ends up dangling from a wire high above the orchestra hall. Inside, the audience grows restless as they wait for Norris to lead his students. Just as people are about to leave, Deneen steps up and leads the performance in his absence. Meanwhile, Stegman, still hanging, pleads for help, and when Norris reaches out, Stegman tries to double-cross him. Norris spots it just in time and finishes him off with one final sucker punch, and he falls to his death right through the ceiling into the orchestra hall. One would think Norris would be prosecuted for the death of the students, but fortunately for him, he was not prosecuted because the police could not find anyone who saw it happen. The end. Thank you for sticking to the end of my video. Please do me the biggest favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.